aromatic coffee.
The government has recently brought out the API initiative to bring in greater transparency and make it easier for do business when it comes to the PLI schemes. There have been changes also made to the FAME scheme for the auto sector. To speak about these changes and initiatives, with us today is Arun Goel, the Secretary for Heavy Industry. Sir, thank you for joining us. Let me ask you about the Application Programming Interface, or API, that has been launched. How integral is this to the Automotive PLI scheme, and what is the thought behind it?
Parikshit, you know, when we launched PLI for auto, we had at that time told the industry that we shall be creating a dedicated portal to ensure ease of doing business and speedy and faceless disbursement of the incentive. So to honor that commitment, after the completion of process of approvals in March, we started extensive discussions with the main OEMs and auto component manufacturers to understand how they operate, what kind of systems they have in their premises, because our aim was not to create any paperwork which is avoidable. So we wanted to use the data which the manufacturers are already generating in their operations to be transmitted in a manner which does not violate their non-disclosure agreements with their suppliers or whatever secrecies they want to maintain. But at the same time, the main condition of the PLI of domestic value addition is transmitted to us from the system, which does not leave any scope for complaint. So that was the objective. So when we interacted, we went to the premises of companies, we saw how they're operating, and then we have now come out with this API, which is Application Programming Interface. What is going to happen in this? See, in industry, because auto industry has a lot of components, so there are a lot of suppliers. Each manufacturer has his own ERP or whatever, whereby the entire data is captured in their normal manufacturing operation. So that data tells which supplier is giving which equipment at what price, what are the duties. This all is because of the GST, customs and all, this all is being captured. Now, what we are saying, from their ERP or whatever, they shall, through the API which we have created, give us the data of domestic value addition without doing any extra work, transmit it to our portal, and on that basis, the PLI incentive shall be dispersed. So what would it ensure? It would be make the system entirely transparent, paperless, faceless, and system driven. So while the voluminous paperwork shall get eliminated, at the same time disbursements shall be automatic, trouble free, and very fast.
Right. How is this going to operate between the ERP system of the auto companies and the PLI auto portal?
Yeah. I'll explain to you on this diagram, you see. So as I said, an OEM or a component manufacturer has a number of suppliers. Let's see, for the ease of explanation, there are two suppliers. So whatever purchases are being made by this OEM or component manufacturer, they are being captured in their system today. Now this input is converted in that factory into the output. Now output could be a vehicle, which is a car of model 1 or model 2, or an auto component. So this is the output.
Right.
There's a condition in the PLI that any output which is eligible for PLI incentive shall be pre-approved by one of our testing agencies. So which means, as is happening in the FAME today, the PLI beneficiaries will be taking that part to the testing agency. Now when the testing agency is approving the part, it will also now, through the API which has been standardized, so the standardized API would have facility to name different fields like you have in Excel sheet.
Right.
So the testing agencies will approve those fields. So this is the API that becomes for this PLI manufacturer specified. So it gets like a boutique product. It becomes that. And whenever this data comes from this API, which is generated within the premises of the manufacturer, it gives data to Ministry's portal.
Right.
So it will be more clear in the next thing. See, this is. Now, gray area is within the premises of OEM or component manufacturer. The yellow is the ministry. So here, ERP database is of the OEM or auto component manufacturers. From here through API, data is fetched and DVA data in JSON format is created. This is happening within the premises of the auto manufacturer. From this, data is pushed to MHI portal database. And on way back, MHI database will acknowledge it through the API through ERP database, which will create the logging. So this process gets completed. Now what it implies also, if you see this manufacturer's ERP database or data fetching and converting into through API into the DVA data on JSON format, it happens within the premises of manufacturer.
Right.
Government doesn't have access to this. Government is only getting the data which they are pushing in JSON format and reverse acknowledgement.
Right.
So you can see the manufacturers is absolutely safe. And this pushing will also be happening in a safe environment.
Right. Right.
We are ensuring it. And when I say safe environment, this is to the satisfaction of auto component manufacturers.
Correct.
So we have had detailed discussions. Whatever they want to ensure their confidence, we are ensuring the safe environment.
Right.
Now I'll go a bit detailed to give you a particular example. Now let's suppose of a particular batch a vehicle is made. This is the chassis number. Now this is the model number XYZ, and it has a variant LX. So let's suppose for the sake of simplicity it has 5 components. Now this is the value of components. One is 15,000, 110,000, 50,000, 35,000, 21,000. Now each component has its own domestic value. Is varying. Let's suppose the first one is 100%. So then it becomes 15,000 as a domestic value addition. The second one, which is 110,000, let's suppose the domestic value addition is 40%.
Right.
So then it is only 44,000 value.
Okay.
So we keep on doing this. So the total figure, let's suppose it comes to 56.19%.
Right.
So what they are transmitting to us is the last figure. That's why we have mentioned here in the yellow color. This internal data is entirely of the auto manufacturer. This they are not sharing with us.
Right.
They are sharing with us this, but this 56.15 is driven from their data. It's not typed in. So we are believing it. Tomorrow, if there's a complaint, then we can go back to the digital footprint to ensure that what has been transmitted is factually correct or incorrect. But this all continues to be with the auto manufacturer. It is not coming to us.
So it will help you check frauds, help you to check any sort of a complaint and verify the complaint also.
Absolutely.
Right. The government has also brought in a new DVA data submission criteria for both PLI and FAME schemes. Could you also give us a sense of why this was done and what is the change from earlier?
No, you're talking about the FAME?
FAME.
Yeah. See, in FAME we had the phased manufacturing program. So whereby we had given which component of the vehicle should be made in India by which date. Now this was happening, we received a number of complaints against some of the people that the model which they got approved from ARI or ICAT was showing that being made in India. But in reality, what on the basis of that approval was being sold in the market was not made in India. And in the complaints, they gave us the import data of those companies, of those components. So when we cross-checked, some of those were found correct. So now that has to be a systematic change. Now that's what we have now come out with this API, whereby whatever domestic value addition is happening, it is being captured in the factory premises, and from there through API the final DVA gets transmitted to us. It does not leave any scope of complaints if they're false. Many times people say the complaints are false. Why do you inquire and all? See, as a government, whenever we receive a complaint, we have to take cognizance. And if, particularly if there is specific data, we need to go into detail. But under the existing system, it was not possible. With the new system, the data coming to us from the system, the possibility of telling a lie automatically decreases. And if the complaint is false, the manufacturer will not be paid at all. The system is so fast through the digital footprint, we can make out whether the complaint is genuine or false. So I think this helps both ways. It helps in cutting down the complaints, that means the false complaints. At the same time, it will encourage auto manufacturers to do the DVA, which is the objective of Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Sir, I would like to ask you about the number of complaints that you received, because there were a lot of complaints which are doing the rounds. How many did you receive? In how many cases did you possibly take action, and would it be possible for you to tell us about those companies?
See, we received few complaints. Each complaint has been taken cognizance of with absolute seriousness. We are not letting anybody do a wrong thing. And we are following a uniform criteria for all complaints, irrespective of who the manufacturer is. You can check up in the market. We are following the same strategy. We are going to the root, and whatever complaint is found genuine, we are taking the action appropriately, proportionate to the mistake or the error on their part.
Right. Does this also mean holding back the incentives?
Of course. Why not? If somebody has taken X money from the government exchequer, which was not his due, so is it not the government duty to recover it? It's our duty to recover. So we are recovering that. In the sense, that amount, if they have taken X money, that X money from the future payments will be stopped. But not more than X, only X. We are very clear about it. So the moment the product is made in India, nobody will ask questions. But if they have said made in India, but it's not made in India, and if they've taken a benefit for that, that thing will not be paid.
Are you also cross-checking the incentives that have been given out since the start of the FAME scheme, or is this a recent phenomenon?
No, any complaint is saying specific. As I said, in the FAME phased manufacturing program had specific dates for specific components.
Right.
So till that date they could import. Beyond that date they could not import.
When these fires took place, there were also question marks about the quality checks being carried out by these companies, about the products that they are submitting to ARAI and ICAT for testing, and there were also talk about ramping up the testing capabilities of our agencies. What are you doing about that, sir?
See, we believe in creating a system for human safety. And at the same time, the industry should have a prior notice, time to carry out the upgradation, and as a whole, the industry should be elevated to a higher level of working. So that's the objective. With that objective in view, now we saw what tests are currently being performed in our testing centers. Under the MHI, we have the ICAT and ARAI. So there are three types of tests. The tests at the level of cell, then at the level of battery pack, and BMS, that's the battery management system. So we in the ministry contacted experts and saw which all tests are currently being done for all these three across the world. So after tabulating, we created a data that these are the tests being done across the world. And which are the tests which being done in India. So now, when we compared the two, there were a large number of tests which, as on today, we do not have the capability. That's because our industry is growing. So these things happen simultaneously. Like for the non-EV, we have set up NetTrip, 3,500 crore. We have created a huge infrastructure in ICAT Manesar, then NetX Indore, then GRC Chennai, whereby all the international level tests are currently being carried out in India. Previously, those vehicles had to go outside India for testing. So now for the e-vehicles, on the battery side, we enumerated those. So now we found, like the tests which not currently being done, for example, on the fire exposure or altitude simulation then vibration, drop, free fall case tests, these kind of tests. Then mechanical shocks, mechanical crush, these tests were not being done. Then we have the overcharge control of current, electrical, thermal shock and cycling, it's a mechanical test, over discharge protection, this is electrical, overcharge protection, which is electrical, then over temperature protection, which is electrical, water exposure, water immersion, these are mechanical tests, external short circuit protection, this is an electrical test. For all these tests, we then checked which kind of equipment is required, the best equipment by world standards. So we identified that, and now we have sanctioned the money to ARI Pune, 41 crores for purchasing all this equipment.
Big political story of the day. Veteran Congress leader and former Union Minister Ghulam Nabi Azad has snapped ties with the party after 5 decades of association. In a letter addressed to Congress President Sonia Gandhi, Azad, who also served as the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, singled out and heavily criticized Rahul Gandhi, accusing him of demolishing the consultative mechanism that existed within the party. Azad wrote that Rahul sidelined all senior and experienced leaders and let a new coterie of inexperienced sycophants run the party. He added that Congress had conceded its political space to the BJP and regional parties because the leadership in the past 8 years has tried to foist a non-serious individual at the helm of the party. Meanwhile, the Congress threw its weight behind Rahul and questioned the timing of Azad's exit from the party. Party spokesperson Jairam Samesh said that the veteran leader chose to resign when the Congress was gearing up for 2 very important political programs. Let me take this forward. We have Sanjay Kumar, political analyst and professor at CSDS, Rahul Verma, fellow at the Center for Policy Research. Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Kumar, if I can begin with you, how big a loss is this for the Congress party, and what could be the timing for this?
See, every single leader who leaves the party, especially for the Congress, where we have seen or we have witnessed senior leader exiting the party, I think every single leader exiting the party is a big blow. Remember at the time of Punjab elections, the Chief Minister, he was in the Congress party for such a long time, he left the party. So I don't think there is anything to suggest that this is not a blow for the party. It is a blow for the party. Now about the timing, yes. 2 states goes to poll, Gujarat and Himachal, and then Congress is preparing for the Yatra. I think I don't find any connection that Azad want to put pressure on the party because these are the important events Congress party has to initiate, and that is why he is putting down his papers because he want to do some bargain, etc. So I don't really understand. I don't want to put the resignation letter vis-a-vis the timings. I think it could have happened a month before. It could have happened even a month later. So I don't find any connection between his resignation and the timing. I think there were signs of his being unhappy with the party. If people in the Congress party were not looking at these signals, if they were not getting the signals, I think they were trying to divert the attention. I think the signals were very clear. So I don't find any connection between resignation and the timing.
All right. So you're saying signals are very clear. Rahul Verma, what does this mean for the Congress party, especially for the election of the Congress president, which is going to take place in the next few weeks? It has been delayed. But you have Ghulam Nabi Azad, who has spent at least 50 years with the Congress party. He has gone ahead and said that Rahul is immature. He's blamed a coterie of sycophants around him for taking all these decisions. When you have such a senior leader who was quite close to 10th Jatpat making statements like these, do you think the Gandhis can continue at the helm of the Congress party?
We don't know that, Parikshit, whether Gandhis would decide to continue or not, and whether the elections for the party president is actually going to be held or not, or this delay is part of all other delays that have been taking place. In my opinion, for last few years, especially since 2014, Congress party is bleeding and bleeding very badly. And what completely agree with Sanjay. Every time a leader of this stature leaves the party and makes those allegations against the first family and the party, that's a very, very big signal. In the perceptive loss of each such leader moving away from the party basically tells us that party is nowhere close to understanding the nature of its crisis and doing anything to be able to solve the problems that is emanating Congress party.
Right. So clearly it is a big loss, and there have been a series of leaders who have left over the years. And of course, the Congress still trying to back Rahul Gandhi to the hilt. Sanjay Kumar, coming to you. Now, what is the possibility of some of the senior leaders who have left the Congress recently of forming their own outfit, forming their own political party in the days to come?
I don't see the possibility of all these Congress leaders, senior Congress leaders who have left the party coming together and forming their own party before 2024. I think the time is too short for them to join together and form a party which could emerge as an alternative or a new Congress. My own sense is that the Congress would continue in the shape it is at the moment till 2024, maybe still headed by the Gandhi family, one of the Gandhi family, members of the Gandhi family. And after 2024, when the party will get defeated badly, which is most likely to happen again in 2024, that is the time when I think my own guess is that that is the time Congress might witness a major split. And then we may see a new Congress emerging out of the old Congress, which might include a lot of senior leaders who have left the party and maybe other senior leaders who may choose to remain in the party till 2024. But before that, I don't see the possibility of these leaders joining together and forming a new party of their own.
Right. Rahul, do you get a sense that if things continue in this manner, if Sonia Gandhi is once again chosen as the leader of the Congress, if the reins of the Congress party remain with Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, do you think there will be more damage in the terms of more leaders walking out of the Congress party in the weeks to come?
Parikshit, I would merge your question with the question that you asked Sanjayji to answer this. And the reason is following. In our analysis, we put too much weight on the family and the problem that the first family might be creating for the Congress party. But in some ways, we have to also look at what these leaders like Ghulam Nabi Azad or other leaders who have either raised their voice or left the party can or cannot do. In some ways, what has happened, like what is surprising, that after 2 elections, after the murmurs that have been there for a couple of years, none of them have stood and said, a lot has happened, I am now going to contest for the presidency post. Because the Congress constitution actually allows that anyone can contest for the post of presidential election with 10 delegates, right? And so in some ways, what we are also witnessing, and that's the history of the Congress party since 70s, that now there is no leader left in the Congress party who can actually start a successful party even at the state level. To start a successful political party, you need at least 2 things. One, a significant mass base in that state, and second, period. And we know, like if you read all the names, even in the people who wrote the letter, except 1 or 2, hardly anyone is there within the Congress party who has significant mass base in their states, who can create a political party or can actually challenge the leadership, right? So they can make all these allegations, write letters, and leave the party. But there is no open rebellion happening in the Congress party. And that's why I agree with Sanjayji. Perhaps we are not going to see a split in the Congress party like we saw in 1969 or like we saw in 1978. So a vertical split in the Congress party is not on the cards. Now, whether the Gandhis are going to, like, you know, Rahul Gandhi gave enough indications that, please, I'm leaving the post of presidency. No one from the family is going to contest for the post of presidency. You all decide amongst yourself who should be the president of the party. And in some ways, none of these leaders, despite raising concerns and other things, are actually ready to go against the family and take things head on.
All right. We've run out of time, but Rahul Verma, Mr. Sanjay Kumar, thank you very much for joining us here on Newscentre, giving us your view on the big exit from the Congress party, and that is Ghulam Nabi Azad, veteran Congress leader and also former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Newscentre. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.